Hello, welcome back to episode 10 of the AI Code Central podcast with me, your favorite host, and the
Yeah,
other guy we keep around just for a
whatever.
second voice. Hi, Charlie.
Anyway,
In this episode, we had actually a pretty unique guest, I would say, Chris Brereton. He was a lot of fun. I liked it. Well,
it's
I
cool
say
dude.
that
Yeah,
about everybody. I know I say that about everybody. But I'm also, when I say that, I'm not lying. He's an interesting cat because he has very different perspectives on AI because not only does he build things, but he also invests in things. So he's a really interesting character. Also, he and a friend of his are doing a Microverse 26 products in 2026. They want to build 26 different products within 2026, which I think is fascinating. And I really want to have him back midway through 2026 just to kind of check in and
yeah.
see how it's going. And then maybe the beginning of 2027 to see how the whole process kind of went down and shook out and how it worked out.
I want to see what he thinks where his head at is after five and then after 10. Because I got out, I built five, and then after I think I'm at 11 now, and it's completely
Mm,
different than number five. So it's like speed to deployment while still keeping something
yeah.
functional.
And also the
I like
ones
to
that
get his thoughts on that.
they've already kind of mapped out some of them, like they've already
Mhm.
come up with the ideas for some of them, so it would be interesting to see how it went from idea to reality, if it even made it that far
Yeah.
in their journey, or if they scrapped it or they changed it a bit, or yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting like journey to follow for sure. But he's a cool cat. We talked about music and all kinds of things, so
Cool taste
yeah,
in
he's
music. Yeah. You mentioned Tool.
yeah. And you know what I got me right at the end? He has just recently had a child. I think he said she was 3 months old. And he said that she will never drive a car.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, mind
Mhm.
blown, never drive a car. And the likelihood that the job that she will have exists now is not very big.
I agree with
Yeah.
that.
He's cool. I liked him. He was a good time. Okay. So let's catch up because I haven't really talked to you very much, thankfully. What's new?
Okay. So I went to Trestle last
Oh,
week.
that's right. Yeah.
I was
You
up
sent
there
me
for the
more
day.
pictures.
Yeah, I saw Bruce again, Bruce the Moose.
Hmm.
So I get done with one trail. It's like real steep, and basically you don't touch your brakes, and you just let the G's just throw you out of this trail. So it goes down real steep, and then it kind of takes you back up. So G's carry you up. I'm moving pretty fast. So you kind of go around, like you go down. If you're watching, I'm just gonna do a bunch of hand gestures, and you kind of peel out around
Hmm.
this maybe two or three trails. And as we get to the entrance of the next one, as we move down the mountain, I see like four or five guys just kind of standing around, and yeah, they're like 50 feet in front of me. Like I can clearly see them. And the road that I'm on, it's a dirt road, and it's wide enough for two cars. So like if you get hurt at the top of the mountain, you go down this road on an ATV, that kind of thing. And it's a pretty wide area. And you're like, why are these guys just? And then there's one guy standing in front of the entrance to the next trail, and the next trail again takes you down. So you can like you're going fast enough. There's a jump on the side where you can jump up and then land on the downslope of the part down. So like you can hit the take and you can really cruise in the next trail.
Mm.
And so I'm wanting to do that, and I see you guys standing there. I'm like, what the hell? Okay, what's going on? Like, why is everybody looking in this direction? And then I slow down and I stop. Like, all right. And then the guy looks at me and he points like to the right. Like he doesn't say anything, just points. And I'm wearing a full face with my downhill goggles, on my bike. I'm like, what in the hell? Oh wow, there's a moose right there. That's just chilling, standing
Ooh,
there, and he's no
big
more than
boy
like,
just standing.
yeah, he's like when you see it, like you see it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, all right. I think he was the mother, 20 feet away, and then the little one was obviously right behind it, and they're like
Mm.
kind of hopping over a rope, and then they went down into the trail, and we just, we stood there. One of the guys, I don't know, four or five guys standing there, like he goes, I've done some pretty dumb things on a bike, but I'm not dumb enough to get in the middle of the mother and the child, like that's not gonna
Nope.
happen. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, dude, you'll get eaten alive. So we all took a couple of pictures. That was pretty cool. Big creatures, big animals. It was cool to see them. I can't like how often do you see a moose, right?
Yeah.
Just like
Even from looking at your pictures, I think it's really hard for someone who hasn't seen them like in real life to understand the sheer size of them. Because yes, I can see that they're big, but I think when you're physically there and it's like crossing the road or it's near you,
Yeah,
I can't imagine,
you're just kind of like,
you know,
wow, all
like,
right, that's a
ooh,
moose.
yeah, like just how big that bad boy is. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
so
very big.
they both went down, and then I took a picture as they went down, like the top of the head. You had to zoom in a bit on the picture, and then we could see
Hmm.
the trees moving. And then there was a pack of like 8 guys behind us. And you're like, whoa, like hold on. There's some moose down there. And they're like, oh shit, no way, really? And then we all kind of like moved down a little bit, try to get closer. And then we waited a little bit, and then we just buzzed off. I was not the first to go. There's a guy in front of me,
Yeah,
and then I gave him some room, and then I went buzzing down.
yeah.
I didn't
Did you see them
go.
again? Or no? Like as you were going? No.
Mm-mm. Didn't see him again. And then that's the second to last trail at the bottom, like second to last trail to the base.
Hmm.
And when I went hopped on the gondola, I was like, "Yo, dude, like there's some moose over there." I was like, "Oh, really?" Like we've seen them the last couple of days. He's like, "Just be careful." I was like, all right, and just threw my bike and went back up to the top. So that was cool. Yeah, saw the moose. I saw a dude. I didn't see it happen. I saw him on the trail after he crashed. I saw him shindig, where you go on and I don't know, you hit a rock or something, and your foot just slips off, and then the pedal just carves your shin. You could tell. I mean, he was down, like he was on his back, and he was holding his shin, and he was doing the he was doing that, and I was like, oh, fuck. Like we've all been there. Like if
Are
you ride
your
any kind of like mountain bike or downhill trials, whatever, we've all been. I have scars from when I was a teenager. A pedal one time went so hard into my shin, I could see, like it wasn't even bleeding, but I could see the bone. Like the skin was like it was pretty bad.
your pedals are just metal, right? With
Yeah,
like, yeah,
and there's like pins that there's little pins that
on the
stick out.
sides.
And
Yeah.
there's bigger,
Because
like for downhill, like the biking that I do, there's downhill mountain biking, they stick out a little bit more. There's more pins that stick out longer so your feet don't
ooh,
come off. It was pretty
yeah.
bad. Yeah.
I
Oh, man.
I remember being a kid and riding a bike and your foot would slip and the pedal would come all the way around and
Exactly.
just smack you.
Yeah.
But that was like kid size bike. That wasn't
Yeah.
like what you guys deal with. So I can't imagine that
Picture that,
metal
but
just
going,
like scarring your.
yeah,
Ooh.
picture that just going 30 miles an hour on a trail
Yeah,
and then
just.
hoping you slow down and like, hit a tree or something. No, that's luckily it was in the woods, but it wasn't like a very like crowded area. Like you
Yeah,
get off, and we were like, oh
yeah.
shit, dude. All right, so yeah, saw a dude
Oh,
do that. Oh, and I did with my girlfriend. We did a beer spa. We went to a beer spa here in Denver, near downtown Denver, and then we had an hour and a half, and they filled this like water tank, like a tub, basically, with like hops and a bunch of like spices. It was almost like we were in Thailand again. It was like that white netting of just spices, and then it fills with hot
yeah.
water, and then it's the herbs and all of that. It's supposed to relax you, and yeah, it was relaxing. And then in that same room, picture like a room big enough for like a single office. Maybe it's
Yeah.
two offices, and then in that room, there's also an infrared sauna. So that was cool. That actually did help me sleep.
Wait, so you just go in a tub basically full of hops, so it just smells like beer, like a
Yeah,
brewery. And
yeah.
then you lay in there for like what, like an hour?
Yeah, like 30, 45 minutes. And then like there's a button that you push and they'll bring you beer. There's taps there. There's 10 different taps.
Oh,
So
so
if you
you
have
drink beer whilst you're
beer,
in the beer.
yeah, I mean, there's no booze that like you're not soaking in booze, which is
No,
I mean, I don't really drink that much, so it's not
yeah,
like I'm a booze hound and well, it's a
no.
beer spot. I just drink it.
Let's
It
go
was
get
cool. Like
trashed at the beer spa.
yeah,
Yeah.
like come on. I had a couple of beers and yeah, there's 10 different taps. So yeah, you push the button and you just tell them that yeah, can I do IPA or like a lager? Or, like, yeah, cool. And then they just bring it back and then you shower and you're out the door. Hour and a half.
That sounds pretty fun. I've never heard of that. That sounds pretty cool
Yeah,
though.
it was cool. You can do wine too, and,
Nice.
or
Yeah.
just chill in the tub, and you can go from the tub to the dry sauna 5 times, 10 times if you want. It's up to you.
Nice.
So that was
That
pretty
sounds
cool.
like a good time. Nice.
Yeah. What about you? I don't know you didn't. Wait, no, you're out of town.
Yes, I spent the
Mm.
weekend in Ohio with lots of my friends. And on the way out there, I had something happen to me that I have never happened. And I've always been jealous of people that it happens to. So I was on a flight. And when I had checked into the flight and everything, I'm a window person. And when I had checked in, the middle seat was empty. And I thought it was going to remain that way, which I was very happy about until right at the end. And so a guy walked on, and he walked on with a dog. I was
Really?
so happy. But the dog was in his little carrier, and the guy put the dog on the chair while he was getting his things situated. And and then he opened the little zipper and let me pet the dog for a minute. Long story short, the guy is a flight attendant for that airline. And so he was flying like basically for free, but they have to get on last, obviously, because they got to make sure there's enough seats and everything. And his wife was like further back. She's also a flight attendant for the same airline. But it turns out that unless it's a service animal, they are not allowed to let their dogs out of their carrier. They're not even really allowed to let their dog's head poke out of the carrier. And he said that because he was a flight attendant, even though the dog might probably would be happier, the dog was chill and calm and everything the whole time, like not a peep out of this dog. But he said that he didn't want to be like, oh, well, I can do it because I'm, of like, he wanted to stick to the rules. But super nice guy. We literally talked the whole flight, which was less than 2 hours. Super, super nice guy. And then at the end, I got to pet the dog. The dog was an interesting mix. It was a mix between a chihuahua and a pit bull.
Did he just
Yeah.
yap the whole time?
No, he was chill and quiet. Like, wouldn't even have known he was there. But
What does his head look like?
it was a small, no, that's the thing. It
Like
was
the
a small
snout?
dog. It was a small dog. So I'm hoping that the mother was the pit bull. But very small. He was like 9 years old, very chill. The guy was so nice. Him and his wife are about to get a puppy golden retriever. So we talked about that a little bit. But the nicest guy in the world. I've just never, ever had the opportunity.
Oh.
So it made my journey up there just fly by. We were delayed a bit because lightning was in the area, and the airport that I flew out of, to get to your plane, you have to walk out of the building outside on the tarmac and then
Oh, wow.
up a ramp to a plane. And so they wouldn't let us do that with lightning. On the way back, however, when I got back last night, it was hammering it down. And apparently they don't give a crap if you get drenched walking from the plane to the building. I got soaked. I remembered at the last minute that my friend had put a baseball hat in my bag, that bag I had on the plane. So right at the last minute, I was like, oh, I've got a baseball hat. And I threw that on so my head didn't get drenched. It was bucketing it down. And so we all got absolutely drenched walking off. But because there was no lightning, they didn't care about that. So yeah, that happened. But the trip was good. It was really nice to be with my friends for this weekend. I got to see a lot of my friends. And then I got back yesterday. So Sunday evening, they drove me into Cincinnati, into this restaurant that looks over the whole city. The view was just something. I sent you a picture of it, and it really didn't do it any justice. The view was stunning. You could see like the river and all of the trains. Yeah, that was downtown Cincinnati. And then the whole skyline. You could see where the soccer team plays. You could see where the football team plays. You couldn't see the baseball stadium because it was literally right behind the football stadium, but you could see the football stadium, the whole of the buildings down there. It was beautiful. And they were saying that like in the fall and the winter, when there's no leaves on the trees, you actually can see further because you could see for miles, don't get me wrong, but you can see even further. They told me like that we were going to go there, and I had seen I'd looked online and seen a picture of it, and I was like, oh, that looks cool. No, once you get there, it is just gorgeous. It's just straight beautiful. It's called the Incline House. The Incline House, yeah, the Incline House, and it's just the view was it was gorgeous. So yeah, and then I came home yesterday in the pouring rain. Yeah. And I got drenched.
Florida weather is just gnarly. I just can't.
Yeah.
I can't even.
But apparently it's rained the whole time I was gone. It's raining today. It's just miserable and grey. I have a sick kid at home. I'm like, that's going to be today. So yeah. So that was basically what I've done since the last time we hopped on and did this. And then I'll be back in Ohio in a few weeks. Back up to see my friends.
Yeah. It's for some reason I think I text this every time out. Airports are just very relaxing for me.
You love an airport, and I don't know why. You love
it's almost like a controlled chaos, or if you have your shit together, if you can actually, if you have your shoe, well, for pre-check you don't have to, but like
No
lines
shoes anymore.
move and yeah,
There's
you can just
no
move.
shoes for Gen Pop anymore. Nope.
Oh
Nobody takes
really?
shoes off anymore. No.
Oh,
I know because
uh,
you're like, oh, send me a picture of the airport. And I'm like, why? You've sat in a million of I'm like, what is it? You love an airport. And it's just so peoply. Like,
I don't know. Yeah, it's very liberating. Maybe that feeling of like, all right, I'm out.
is
Maybe
it
that's what it is.
is it the whole thing or is it the fact that you know that you're going somewhere? Or is it just the whole thing in
Maybe
general
it's
that
both.
you love?
Yeah, maybe it's both. Maybe it's the drive to the airport, just buzzing
Mm.
through. When I went to Thailand, I'm a pretty light packer. When I went to Thailand, I showed up. My girlfriend met me at the airport. She's like, "Is that everything?" I have like one big bag, and she has like three bags and like a backpack, and like yeah, like I don't need a lot of shit. It's very relaxing not having to carry a bunch of stuff through an airport.
I
Yeah,
wish
so
I could
it's
say I've done that.
the experience.
I'm an
Yeah.
overpacker,
Anyway,
like a big time overpacker, but
shocking.
I know. Anyway,
Anyway,
so that's our update for you guys. Hopefully, you had as much fun as we did over the last few days. So, we're going to wrap this up, but hopefully, you enjoy episode 10 with Chris Brereton. He's a cool guy. Like I said, I hope that we get to have him back in the next few months and catch up with how his 26 and 2026 is going. We'll be back next week with a whole new episode. And until then, stay safe and enjoy building whatever you're currently building.
peace.
Well, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the AI Central podcast, where we take a deep dive into the world of AI, coding, and everything involved. You know me, I'm Caz. As always, I am joined by my co host, Charlie. Just a reminder that I am still learning AI from scratch. And Charlie does most of the vibe coding and kind of tries to keep us on track. We have another guest for you. We are spoiling you because every time you see our faces almost, we have a guest for you. But we have a unique guest today. He's been navigating some incredible spaces from climate tech to venture capital and has a really interesting perspective on technology and AI. So please give a warm welcome to Christopher Brereton. Christopher, thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming with us. I've been doing some homework on you, as we talked about a little bit before we started the episode. But I'm not going to do you as much justice as you're going to do yourself. So can you please just tell our audience a little bit about you and how you kind of found yourself in the AI world?
Sure. I've recently been describing what I do as my portfolio era, which
Oh,
which basically means I'm doing a bunch of different things at the same time right now. And one of those things is fractional product leadership. I have a handful of clients that I'm working with to help them develop whatever it is that their business needs to build and reach some business outcomes. I am building a startup of my own that is an AI-based product, or at least a human-assisted AI is how we're framing what that looks like. And then I have all kinds of little side projects where I'm doing advising, consulting, coaching, depending on who the client might be. And then I have a bunch of little side projects behind that. One of them is we're calling it Microverse, which is basically we're going to try to build 26 products in 2026, all vibe coded. And then there's all kinds of things that'll spill out from there. So we can kind of go all over the board. I've spent my career primarily focused on businesses that create positive impacts for people and the planet is how I frame it. And so that's been everything from software to enable nonprofits to be better versions of themselves, to a climate tech company, to health tech. And currently I'm working on large scale energy management systems in the data center world through the largest Bitcoin miner. There's all kinds of fun stuff we can talk about.
my goodness. I don't know if we're going to cover it all in one episode. That sucks. You'll have to come back again and talk to us about more of it. But let's rewind a little bit because you've piqued my interest with the Microverse, the 26 products in 2026. That is a lot. And through conversations we've had with previous guests, my opinion as somebody new into the AI space is I think one of the hardest parts about AI and building things is ideas and finding, not only coming up with ideas, but unique ideas and ideas that nobody else is doing or they're not doing the same way. So we are over halfway into 2025. Do you have any of these 26 ideas yet?
I think we have about 10 of them. And actually, if your listeners want to follow along, we have a site called Big Idea, which is ideer.com.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Where we're actually just going to start posting the ideas up and trying to gather feedback about the ideas before we start building them.
Yeah.
We're also going to try to seek some ideas from crowdsourcing there too. So if you have a big idea, you can put one in and we'll consider building it next year or maybe before next year. That's where you can follow along with what we're thinking about. The first couple ideas that we're working on are what I would call really narrow, specific problems. Until recently, until this like low barrier to entry way to build products and ship something to market, I would always describe things as like, that's a feature, not a business. And therefore, we're probably not going to build it, right? It's not defensible. It's going to cost too much overhead to get this thing to market. And it's just not a big enough problem to solve or worth kind of taking the risk on. And I think the world has changed and I'm changing my tune on that. So the ideas that you'll see come out of this 26 products in 2026, or what we're calling the microverse, is really, really thin, specific point solution applications. And so an example would be, I'm building one that I'm calling family ops or care ops. I haven't decided yet. But the point is, you have your kids, you have your pets, and you have your properties that all have some sort of care profile that goes with them, right? So if you have a newborn baby, there's a bunch of protocols about how to feed and burp and sleep and how to swaddle and not swaddle, when to swaddle, all those kinds of things that maybe you want to tell your nanny or somebody who's doing a babysitting event for you. And typically that happens either in some printout that you make every time, or you're leaving notes on a whiteboard, or you're constantly kind of redoing those things when you're inviting those people into your life. This allows you to set up those care profiles, create a unique link for that person for that specific event. And that's fucking it.
But that, you know how much time that saves? I'm going to tell you, firsthand experience, my husband and I, if we go on vacation, the kids are older and they still, like, grandma will still come over and watch them, but it's the pets, right? The amount of instructions I have to list out for this dog, that dog, these cats, this cat gets this dog. But if I could just click, 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 or however it goes, or if I take them to the boarding facility, you know, the amount of times I've sat and like typed out essays of, that's incredible. Yeah.
So that's a good example of a business that like probably shouldn't exist back in the day, but now, you know, for $5 a month, it's probably a useful thing to build.
How are those other ideas generated, Chris? The other, I guess, 9 ideas.
Yeah. So the person I'm doing this with is also a product person, and he and I sit in a room once a week for 30 minutes and just bullshit with each other about problems we've seen or experienced or have heard from other people. And we've been cataloging those, and we'll sort of stack rank the ones we think have commercial potential. And then sometimes we might just want to build one for ourselves because we want the thing to exist. So it's mostly just through riffing with him, coming up with a backlog.
Do you guys check anything like Google Trends, Glimpse, any kind of like online data, SEMrush Ahrefs?
We've definitely talked about that, but we haven't started doing that. I feel like there's probably 100 things that we need to come through that we want to do before we start going to that level. But that doesn't mean we won't use that to maybe prune the list that we come up with of like, hey, here's 10 things that are really firing on Google Trends that also are interesting to us.
So did you set yourself like a time frame of like, we want the first 10 kind of done and completed by X date? Like, have you even like mapped that out yet? Or is it kind of like, you're going to wait and see what ideas you have and then the order of which you're going to do them? Or are you just like, we'll figure it out?
The only time frame right now that's sort of a definite time frame is the end of 2026.
Okay.
And so we got a year and a half to hit that.
Yeah.
But we literally, right before this call, Mike and I were on the phone and we were talking about, do we want to have some sort of release cadence where we can set a rhythm and we're like trying to hit some goal? His first offer was, let's do an app a week. And I was like, I'm never going to be able to keep up with that. But maybe every 2 weeks. And so we're discussing like what's the cadence and rhythm. But the cool thing is like both of us will be building one of them at a time. So there'll be 2 in flight every single time. So it won't be 26 individual applications. Wow. It'll be half of that, right?
Gotcha. Is there a platform of choice, LLM of choice?
So we're in like full experimentation mode, and the intent was like, let's build one on each different platform first and find the ones that we like. And the same thing is true for like the release and hosting part of the process. So how are we going to deploy the application, on what tools are we going to use? But eventually we want to converge on what are the shared resources that we want to use for each of these things so that we have like a common backend, so to speak. But we'll get there. We haven't figured that out yet.
I saw also you've mentioned on your LinkedIn about maybe a vibe coding getaway. So would you maybe tie that in with like creating some of your apps?
Yeah, totally. So that again was a byproduct of just jamming with a couple different people on how people are vibe coding, what they're doing. And I was like, any of you guys interested in like doing a weekend getaway where maybe we like fly fish half the time in Montana and the other time we're hands on keyboards building shit. And so we can be like indoor, outdoor kind of, but hanging out together and kind of co-learning through the process.
Yeah.
And so the two people that I initially had that chat with were like 100% in. And so I decided, let me just throw something out on LinkedIn and see what happens. I've gotten something like 50 or so folks commenting on the thread and another 50 or so in my DMs, including an event production company that reached out that is on retainer with Lovable to sponsor a year's worth of events to help people get introduced to the tool. So that's starting to take on a life of its own. There may be a series of events that come out with Lovable. And then one of my clients is a dev shop in London called Mohara. And they have a new program called Transformers that's coming out, which is essentially like vibe coding to your MVP, where they'll actually invest some money and give you some capital to bring the thing to market and so on and so forth. And so there's maybe even a merger of Transformers with Mohara and Lovable events and this vibe coding getaway thing coming together. More to come. Maybe the next episode.
It kind of sounds maybe like almost like a hackathon, but like a chilled out version of a hackathon. Like not like straight, like crazy for hours, but it's like, oh, it's lunch. Let's go do some fishing or something. And then we'll come back and maybe create some more stuff. And and Montana's beautiful. So there's lots of
designing it around what I want to do. That's for sure. Which is like hang out with interesting people, try to build some interesting things and also do some fun out, get in the rivers and get away from the screens for a little bit. Cause I feel like the science fair version of hackathons where like everyone jams for 24, 48 hours and presents to try to get an award. Like it's really fun. I love that, but it's not what I want to do with my weekend.
So also in my little research that I was digging around, finding out about you, I also saw that this October you are going to the Bend Venture Conference. But I think what makes you fascinating to me is not only do you like code and build things and, you're working on this 26 in 2026, but you also like to invest. Mm-hmm. So when you're going to this conference wearing both hats, or are you going, wearing both hats?
Yeah, I'm definitely wearing both. It's funny, you mentioned before the call, like wearing many hats thing, and I always have some sort of silly hat thing on. I'm like, that should be like a personal brand thing. I need some slogan about wearing many hats. Yes, I'm wearing both hats at the conference. I'm also founding a company that's AI enabled that we're calling human assisted AI. And that's in the legal tech space all around legacy planning and legacy preservation. So definitely there to like hang out with other investors, even though I'm not sure we'll raise money for this or not. And then also looking for really, really interesting companies in the space that sort of fit my thesis, which we can riff on if you think that's a useful topic.
Yes, because we did talk a little bit about your thesis before we jumped on. And I hadn't really thought about it until you kind of explained it. I'm going to let you explain it only because you do it better than I can. And I want to make sure that you do it justice. In my brain, as you were kind of explaining to us off camera, it felt kind of like a pebble in a pond. Like that's what I was visualizing as you were explaining it. I was like, there's the pebble in the pond and then everything kind of ripples out. So yeah, let's talk about your thesis because it was very interesting.
Cool. I keep referring it to myself as sort of like the next creative explosion. And so the analogs in the past for me were photography. When we made photography significantly easier, then you would shoot on film, you take the film in, wait for the stuff to come back, hope you got the shot, and then maybe scan that picture into your computer to then share it somewhere else. Like it was super high friction, right?
I remember those days.
For those of us old enough to remember those things. And, the minute photography came out on your phones, that friction was really, really reduced and you had really interesting explosion in all kinds of applications. And then eventually the aggregators of the output is something like the Instagrams and all the influencer cultural shifts that came with that, right? The same thing was true in music for me when I was first playing in a band when I was younger. We would rent big studios and we'd have these really huge boards and we'd be running tape, and then Pro Tools happened, and then GarageBand happened, and then you have this Ableton happen, and then you have this explosion in things like electronic music, and you can make a fucking badass recording in your bedroom now. And so
that's what Billie Eilish did, right? Her very first album was
Was it really?
Bedroom? Yeah, in her bedroom with her brother.
It's awesome. Wow. And so that, again, you've reduced the friction. You have an explosion in creativity in that medium. The same thing was true with videography, and you have things like Spotify that fell out for music, and you have YouTube that came out for video, and all these aggregator platforms that sit on top of that, a mass of content. I think we're experiencing that same exact thing right now with web or app development. I guess there can be also mobile app development here. And so we're going to see a ton of probably crappy apps released, but inside of that like massive amount of noise, there will be some really interesting things that emerge because of the volume, I think. And that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for on the angel investing side. The other thing that goes with that with angel investing is the odds of ever returning your own angel fund back are really, really stacked against you. You need a significant volume of investments to have the odds of winning. And each of those individual investments itself needs to probably be able to return the fund if it's successful on its own. And so I'm looking for what is that signal processing in the noise that's coming with AI, and is it a big enough potential business that it makes sense to angel invest in?
In regards
can I find
to
enough
that,
of those?
Okay, got it. Yeah, the alpha return, right? In regards to angel investing, you said what you look for. What advice do you have to our listeners who are builders and people, vibe coding and everything? Because let's say I uploaded or I created something that's a wrapper and it reads PDFs and it summarizes it for me. Yep. Chris, would you invest?
Probably not. I think.
And why?
A couple things. You need to find a way to make something defensible enough that the next person who does the same thing isn't eating your lunch tomorrow, right?
What does that mean? How would somebody go about that?
To make something defensible?
Yeah.
There's probably 100 different ways to think about it, but the way I would think about it is the users need to feel invested in the thing enough over the amount of work that they've put into using the thing that it's really hard for them to leave and go to the next one when the cheaper version or the free version comes out in a week from today. Okay. So how are you designing a product strategy, not just because I have AI and I'm doing this function, but like what is the sort of stickiness and how do you keep people in the tool for some extended period of time? The second part of that is you need to think about your unit economics of how much does it cost me to find the person who's going to summarize their PDF with my tool? And can I recoup enough of that investment and then some to make a profit over some period of time that's reasonable? And can I do that enough of those transactions? And then is there some step 2, step 3, step 4 of the product that will come out to make that lifetime value increase over time or widen margins over time? And then for angel investing specifically, like it doesn't make sense for me to invest in a business that can't break that $1 billion in valuation number, because I'll be diluted so many times by the time that company gets there, if it ever gets there, that there needs to be enough left on the cap table for me to get a return on the investment over that 10 years of illiquidity that I sat through. And so is the potential revenue of this business big enough to get to a valuation of that $1 billion or greater? As an angel investor, something I look at.
Got it.
It's not just the idea, because a lot of people can come up with a really good idea that
I'm going to throw 26 of them away next year.
Yeah, no way. That's what I'm thinking. Like, yeah, you can come up with an idea, right? But I think this is the one thing that has so far in my short adventure into the AI and talking to people like you who are involved in it is just how readily people are willing to talk about their ideas. Or because in my mind, I'm like, why are you telling us this? This is going out on the internet. People are going to listen to it. Someone's going to steal your idea, right? And that's in my mind. But I think it's what you said about, it's not just the idea. It's not anybody can basically create something on AI now. It's about, it's more than the idea, right? It has to make sense. It has to be defensible, like you said. It has to actually bring something of use to not just you and your immediate, whoever you're thinking about, but on a wider frame. So maybe there's 3 people that all have the same or a similar idea, but only one of them is going to be able to move that past the goalpost.
Totally. So much of it comes down to execution at the end of the day. I think I was hosting a podcast yesterday talking to an AI founder. And one of the things he and I were talking about on that show was there's also sort of a just staying in the game window. A lot of people don't have the grit or the wherewithal to push through the shit that's really hard. And so you may have 3 or 4 people run out the gate with the same idea, with the same resources, with the same access, whatever it might be. But one of those teams is going to survive the staring into the abyss and eating glass, is how I think Elon Musk used to describe entrepreneurship. And so the staying in the game is a big part of it. And then the other thing is we're talking about venture investing right now, but a lot of businesses shouldn't be raising venture capital. They can build really meaningful businesses that make the founders and the teams a lot of money and provide a lot of value to the world, but aren't billion-dollar valuation type business models. And those things are great. And I think AI is going to create a lot of those types of things too, but those are harder for venture portfolios to be the bank for.
Do you think those ones are more realistic? I mean, I know that sounds like it's almost a dumb question, like, is it more realistic? But do you think that that's probably the way that AI will go in the future, is less of these billion-dollar kind of companies and more of the smaller ones, or maybe companies that have more than one particular product that ends up being successful? Do you think that's more likely what we're going to see moving forward?
I think you'll see that. I mean, software in general kind of took that same arc, right? There's a handful of really successful multi-billion-dollar companies, but there's also this ecosystem of businesses that are making a handful of millions of dollars a year by servicing other people's technology needs or building small tools for other companies that don't have the capacity to build their own tools. And so I think there will be this like ecosystem or levels of the types of things that AI is solving for. And all the attention in the media tends to be attracted to the unicorn, so to speak, type of use cases. But I bet you there's already 100 software agencies that are just vibe coding products for small businesses, and that could be a very meaningful, successful business. If you were making $2-3 million a year net at the end of the year, would you be stoked? I absolutely would be.
Yeah.
And venture investors would never invest in that.
No, but you're making, solid money, and you're literally just building things, very specific things for these companies that they can't or won't do themselves. But you can make, like I said, you can make a living very easily. And also, I would venture to say that a lot of these companies are looking for very, very similar things. And so once you've built one, you're not putting in too much effort to refigure something you've already previously built, right?
Absolutely.
I would guess.
Absolutely.
But so going back to your thesis, do you have an idea of what potentially this boom would be? Have you already invested in anything that you would consider that would be? Or as if like looking into the future, I understand that, but
yeah. So I'm not specifically only investing in that thesis, just to be clear. That's one of them.
Yeah.
The range of stuff I'm interested in investing in are climate tech, health tech, and digital infrastructure is what I'm kind of calling the rest of whatever doesn't neatly fit in climate and health.
Yeah.
But also isn't like selling more trash on the internet. That's definitely a prerequisite. The two companies that I recently invested in, one is a climate tech company that's building electric motors for EV boat fleets, basically. It's called Photon Marine, and they're up here in Portland, Oregon. Super cool company. And the insight that blew me away there is docks are already wired up with electronic chargers because boats, all the accessories on the boats have always run on battery, but the motors just haven't. And so the infrastructure for charging is already there, which is crazy and awesome, which is the hard part for EV car fleets, right? The other one recently that I invested in is a health tech company called Astron Health. And Astron is an AI-backed type of product. What they're doing is personalized cancer treatments. So they're able to look at basic off-the-shelf tests that you would normally have as part of your oncology process if you're diagnosed with cancer, and run that through a database and essentially look through all of the different off-label use cases of drugs to come up with a specific treatment plan to help you stay in remission longer. And that's like super interesting to me. So it is health tech, but there's a huge component of how AI and the algorithms run in the background to come up with these really hyper-personalized treatment plans. Which is also cool because it reduces the cost of care to the end user or the patient, because these are off-label, non-branded drugs now that they get to take in a different way.
When you talk to these founders, what is it that you're looking for? Just lasering in on the founder or founders team?
On the individual themselves, not the business model.
Yeah.
I think it's a reason to believe that they're the right one to solve the problem is usually the first one. And second is I feel like there's a grit that most founders bring to the table that they've demonstrated somewhere else in their life, even if they weren't previously a founder. And so I'm looking for like, what's the war story where you survived something super, super hard and like persevered, even if it was you made it to the other side and failed, but you went all the way through the process, right? Because that's that staying in the game power, right? Like this is super hard and is always going to be super hard. And you got to be willing to go through the hard and get up every day and do it again for a long time, like 5-10 years most of the time. Nothing meaningful gets built in less than 5 that I've ever seen.
What advice do you have for our building audience on eating glass for 5 years?
That's a good question. I can tell you what works for me, I guess, which is I have a pretty clear 10-year horizon of something that I'm trying to accomplish. And what that's grounded in is sort of a daily meditative practice about what is that outcome I'm trying to work toward. And by being clear on what that outcome is that I'm trying to work toward, I can sort of prioritize where I spend my time today and make decisions easily about whether that's worth investing in or not worth investing in. And so for me, that's time rich in 10 years, which I define as the freedom and flexibility and the opportunity or affordance to do what I want, when I want, where I want, with who I want, how I want. To do that, I need to create a certain amount of economic security. And the way to create economic security is to build and earn equity in meaningful businesses that I think are amplifying positive impacts on people on the planet. So that's my little framework for all the
Cool.
decisions I make of how to invest my time to get to that time rich state by age 50, 10 years away.
Got it.
Wow. That is, well, I mean, if you build these 26 and 2026 and they all take off, then you'll be fine.
Well, if we think about, so also the reason about 26 is there's volume there, right? We're getting back to that portfolio mindset of, as an angel investor, you need a portfolio of 20 to 40 companies for one or two of them to return the fund and make a little bit. If we're going to build a bunch of products, you can build one at a time and hope you get really lucky, or you can build 26 at a time. And if two of them kind of work, then sweet. So that's the thinking behind why so many is we only expect one or two to maybe be sort of successful enough to make the whole effort worth doing.
Gotcha. And I'm sure by number 8 or 9, I mean, the process is just
we'll get
so
more and more
faster.
efficient as we
Yeah.
And the tools are going to keep getting better and better through that period of time too. Already in this 6 months of this year, I've seen kind of okay prototypes to I feel like I can actually ship something we could charge somebody for.
Oh, okay.
Can we circle back real quick? Something you said about the cancer treatment thing, and it might be an unfair question, and if it is, we'll cut it out. But how do you see the impact of AI on medical research in terms of not just cancer, which obviously the fact that we haven't cured it yet, but other
That's another
other
podcast.
diseases.
Yeah.
I know. But there's obviously other major diseases out there that you can't help but wonder how far away are we from a cure or whatever, a vaccine, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
How influential do you think that AI may become in that kind of world, given what you just talked about being really able to hone in on an individual's cancer journey and their treatment?
I guess the way I've been thinking about it, and I'm by no means the expert here, but I think there's the sort of let's call it preventative part of the journey of trying to prohibit something from happening. And then there's the treating the thing post it happening and becoming more efficient in the treatment of the thing, right? What's cool about Astron, and I think this is maybe even going to be the thing that makes the business the most successful, we'll see over time, is the sort of recursive learning process of we've come up with a specific treatment for a specific type of cancer in your specific scenario. You've now done the treatment for whatever that period of time is, and we can track the success rates of actually applying the treatment itself. And so with enough volume of treatments like that, we can have some recursive learning where the suggested treatment path is altered based on the success rates of the people who have experienced these things, right? That's software's good at that kind of stuff. And super exciting to think you probably don't need a tremendous amount of volume to get to really strong answers, especially if we can niche down a little bit on certain types of cancer treatments that are a little more common types of cancer, so we can figure out how to keep people in remission longer in those bigger buckets. The volume-based recursive learning is really cool part of Astron. I don't know any of these companies personally, but I've been reading about companies doing some of the more how might we solve these problems before they happen part of the journey, using all kinds of biomarkers and stuff early to come up with different types of compounds that might solve a problem over time. And so the combination of that, before the thing happens, how do we prevent it? And how do we fix it faster after it happens, if it happens? When those two things start to merge up, I think we're going to see some really cool stuff. But there's a lot of even genetic sequencing kind of AI stuff going on where it's using an LLM structure, but it's using molecules instead of language to figure out different ways you might construct these things together to come up with different ways of addressing problems.
Yeah. I've been kind of reticent about AI because I do wonder what the social impact might be in terms of totally jobs and things like that. So, and that's obviously a much deeper conversation for maybe another podcast. But I also think that there's some great things that could potentially come with AI, like we just talked about with the cancer treatment and research and medical things. I think it's there's a balance somewhere. And I'm not saying that the balance is right now, and I'm not saying that it's going to be right immediately, but I think I always liken it to, your grandparents in a microwave. When the microwaves first came out, they were never going to have one. They were awful. It was like it was the unknown, right? And now everyone's got a microwave. I kind of feel a little bit I'm a microwave person when it comes to AI, but also I'm not as educated as other people. But I wonder how you balance that, because I know obviously you're very big in a social impact and keeping an awareness of what you're doing with that. How do you kind of balance that?
I think there's always two sides to the knife. Technology is always one of those things where like you create a ton of good and you also create some really horrible outcomes at the same time, even though that thing can create a lot of good. The really dumb analogy I use all the time is like self-driving cars are going to be great because they'll reduce traffic and reduce congestion and reduce pollution and all those things, but they're also going to fucking kill people along the way until we get to that state, right? And if you're going to be building something like that, you need to be well aware of the negative side of the thing that you're building and bringing to market. And so focusing on things that are hopefully all socially responsible or drive positive impacts for people on the planet is like already filtering out a lot of the crap that can be true in a negative way, hopefully, in focusing on those types of things. But I absolutely think that AI is going to have, like, generally a lot of really negative impacts and hopefully a lot of positive impacts that outweigh those negative impacts. One of the things I'm slightly concerned about is sort of racing to the mean average, I guess I'll call it. So if everyone's pumping their thoughts or whatever into an LLM and the LLM is regurgitating those thoughts back in a way that's useful in some context, but then that stuff starts going back into the system, you kind of like are slowly getting to the middle, or maybe quickly getting to the middle. And in the process, you're reducing people's ability to think originally and come up with their own opinions about things. And I think people, unfortunately, are lazy, and we're going to see a lot of additional laziness because of those types of things. And then we're going to just get like boring, middle of the road, average outputs instead of like really interesting next level leaps. That said, like everyone who decides to gravitate to that kind of behavior leaves a huge door open for people who will go think originally and challenge that system.
Yeah. And I think in that case, those original thinkers, their products will shine, because you'll be so used to seeing like, you know what I mean? So then when something special comes along, you'll be like, it's kind of like,
there it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, if you listen to a lot of music these days, it's like, oh, this song was written by 75 different people, right? And it's but if you go back and look at some of the classics that everybody knows, everybody loves, those things are special, probably written by one person on a piano. So now in today's society, when something special comes along, it does grab you.
Totally.
Because you're kind of so used to that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I think that the same thing will be true with like a lot of skill sets like engineering. If you're a mediocre engineer, AI's coming, right? Like it's if you aren't finding a way to better yourself in your craft and do something more than the mediocre tool that is $20 a month can do, like you should be worried, and you should be upskilling. And if you're unwilling to figure out how to upskill and become a better version of yourself at this thing that this mediocre tool is going to replace you for, it's kind of your fault because you can see it coming. You live in that space. Or
100%.
Self-driving trucks, same kind of thing. Like if you want to put your foot down and say AI is bad because it's going to replace my truck driving job, like it's probably time to start learning how to do something else. And hopefully what will happen is all these other jobs become true because there's this new thing that has been created and is creating economic value, and that creates the need for new types of skills. Like nobody ever, when I was a kid, said Chris is going to grow up and be a product manager. Like that didn't fucking exist when I was born. And I'm thinking about that a lot. I just had a daughter. She's going to be 3 months in a couple of days, and I'm like, what will her life look like? Like I can't even fathom the types of jobs she might have when that time comes.
Because they probably don't even exist right now.
Exactly.
I was telling my sister, I told my sister, my nephews just out of high school, like Jake's job is not going to, like, it doesn't even exist right now. And I thought she was going to throw a punch at me, actually. Anyway, okay.
I keep telling my wife, I'm like, I don't think Lila will ever drive a car. And she's like, don't say that.
That's wild stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't think, what do you think she'll do? Just sit in a,
I think the
it would
car's
be
going to
just
drive itself. By the time she's 16 more years of self-driving advancements are going to be
Or an e-bike.
crazy. Yeah. Or an e-bike.
No, but could you imagine, like, I don't know about you, but where I grew up, I learned to drive a stick shift. And that to me is like real driving. So now I have an SUV and it changes gears and it doesn't feel like driving. But like the art of really driving a stick shift, if you think that your kid is not going to do that, like ever.
Yeah, she may not. I mean, we might get her to because I want her to, but she may never need to, you know?
That's great.
Chris, as we wrap up here, totally random question away from AI and everything. You're a music guy. I can see the guitar in the background. We talked a little bit about a new festival coming up from Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor, which should be incredible, by the way. Who have you listened to the most this year?
Oh, good question. My recency bias is the new Lord Huron record, which has just been on repeat in the background all day, every day. For some reason, the first song on that record just like completely grabbed me the moment I heard it, and it just plays in my head even when I'm not listening to it. My default always on though is Tool. I am a giant nerd for Tool.
Okay.
So if I'm like unclear on what I want to do next, it's usually Tool. If I'm in the like singer-songwriter mood, which is often also the default's Dallas Green's band called City and Color.
Okay.
I love City and Color.
Yeah.
But I'm all over the board, man. From like Frank Sinatra to Bjork to Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails, since you mentioned Trent, and Tool and all the old LA bands. I grew up in LA, so I think I just got mired in the LA rock scene in the 90s. But
gotcha.
Yeah, I love it all.
I saw Tool at Red Rocks many years ago. Incredible.
I'm so
unbelievable.
Jealous.
And then like I think it was a couple weeks later, I saw Metallica.
Tool was way better. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I will go back and forth with you on that.
Right.
Well, it was a laser show.
Yeah.
And, I've been getting into Ray Charles this year.
Oh, I love it.
Did you listen to the duets album he did? It's fantastic.
What is it?
There's a duets album, a Ray Charles duets album.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. It's really good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I went through a phase of like listening to that. I have yet to make it to. Have you been to Red Rocks, Chris? Because I have not made it out to Red Rocks.
I have not.
It's on my list of like places I really want to go. Is Red Rocks for sure. I've been out
to
Denver
Colorado,
a few times.
though.
We've even been to a concert in Colorado together, and it wasn't at Red Rocks.
Wow.
Who was it? Oh yeah.
Good to see Mute Math on their final tour.
Mute Math. I love Mute Math.
Oh my God, I'll cry. I will cry.
Caz was obsessed with their drummer or something, or
when that band broke up,
she thought they were dating at one point.
No, my husband. It doesn't matter. The last song on the last album they did with the whole band in there wrecks me to this day. I love Mute Math. I have seen them so many times, so many states, so many places.
Oh my gosh.
And then it just imploded, and I cannot.
I have a fun Mute Math story for you.
Go ahead. I'm all ears. I will sit forever.
When I was still in a band, I was like 17, I think, at this point in my life. Mute Math was just a Christian band that like wasn't really.
Was that Earthsuit? Was that in the Earthsuit days?
They had just changed their name, I think, to Mute Math at this point. But I found them on Pure Volume on accident. You remember Pure Volume? And I was like, oh, this band sounds so rad. And so I was tracking those guys for a bit. And then we had a day off on one of our tours in Kansas, and we found out Mute Math was playing. So we showed up during when sound check would normally be at a venue because we knew what that looked like. Went and talked to the Mute Math guys and asked if we could just randomly open the show that night because we had the night off. And they invited us onto their bus. We put our little EP in. They listened to the first couple of tracks with us, and they were like, yeah, let's let these guys play. So they let us play the first slot of the show that didn't exist and got the venue to open up 30 minutes before the actual start time of the event. And we had no idea how big Mute Math was in Kansas at all. So we were like hanging out in the green room. The drummer is hilarious. He's also like very sweet. And
Darren?
Didn't cuss or anything like that. Like when we were cussing, he was like covering his ears. And
she knows my first name.
I know their names. It's easy.
In love with them.
When we came out to the stage to actually play the show, the whole entire venue was packed back to back with Mute Math fans. Wow. And it was like one of the funnest shows of the tour, but it was totally a random off night that we didn't think we were going to even have anything to do.
So my fun Mute Math story is this. Years ago, I'm talking years and years ago, a friend of mine, it's got to be 20 something years, a friend of mine bought me tickets to see Matchbox 20 at the Ice Palace in Tampa. And I'll
reserve my reaction to that.
I said it was a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
So I never really cared about opening acts at the time. One of which was Alanis Morissette.
Oh,
Okay. Which,
amazing.
my mistake. Thank you. I didn't realize. So we skipped the first opening act, caught Alanis Morissette, and I was like, this woman is amazing. She's phenomenal. Yeah. And then Matchbox 20. Do you know who the first opening act was that I missed?
Oh my God.
And I have seen them in podunk record shops in Orlando. I've been to Alabama. I've been to Utah, Colorado, because I took him to see them. But that was after Darren left and they brought in the other drummer. I saw them twice with the other drummer. I can't remember his name, but when they broke up, I was gutted. And most people have never heard of this band.
Yeah, I was going to say, I very rarely know anyone that even knows who Mute Math is.
I'm literally looking at my vinyl collection right now, and the first two I see is Play Dead and Voice in the Silence.
That's awesome.
So anyway, that's not what we're talking about.
What a fun way to wrap up this show.
I know, but we have one more fun little thing we're going to do, and then I promise we'll wrap up. We will let you go.
I do have to jump in just a second, but let's do it.
Okay, real quick, these rapid fire, and then we're done.
Cool.
Okay. 1, when you are coding, what music do you listen to, if anything? Or genre? We'll just do genre.
Usually what I'll put on is some I like a band called Of Water, I like Sigaros, if I'm going back to older versions of these like more instrumental ambient kind of music. Album Leaf is another one that I'll default to. They're usually like lyricless or sort of lyrics I can't understand if we're talking about Sigaros. Because otherwise I like kind of key into lyrics, but I love the like melodic ambient stuff when I'm in focus mode.
Okay, real quick. I see you have books. I am a huge reader. I'm working on my library right now. I have a few. What's your favorite book you've read?
Oh God, that's really tough. But I can tell you the book that I'm reading right now that I'm in love with is called The Innovators, and it's a Walter Isaacson book that sort of documents the history of technology that led to the internet and then what happened after the internet and all of the different people that came together for those things to become true. And it's sort of the like antithesis of the genius inventor. It's like nobody was the one genius inventor. It took all of these different people to stand on each other's shoulders to get to this moment. And it's been mind-boggling. And prior to that book, I had read A History on Bell Labs, which was a huge component of what led to all this stuff. So I'm digging the like tech history, I guess, at the moment.
Okay, last question, and then I promise we'll let you go. What is your favorite productivity hack?
Time management all day. I'm a psycho about managing my time.
As we run late.
Yeah, as we're 2 minutes late.
But that's our time management. Yeah. We screwed that up.
But time management is definitely my thing. And in a future podcast, we can talk about time hacks.
Cool.
For sure, because you are coming back after your 26 off in 2026. So I want to talk about that. But there's lots to talk about. But we have to let you go. Thank you so very much for joining us. It's been a fascinating conversation. Yes. And I promise you we'll have you back if you have the time.
Cool. Nice to hang with you guys. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.